what happens whenever we feel an emotion and we don't let it go? Whenever we have this resentment, whenever we have these experiences in our lives, either with an interaction with a person, with certain aspects of frustration that happen with us in terms of things not moving in the way we want, we start generating these chronic alarms, these grudges that are going to create a pool of energy and are going to start creating these holes literally in the membranes of our cells. And it is going to start flowing a cascade of different cytokines, interleukins, and different names, technical names, which are translated into the molecules of emotion that Candace Pert spoke about. So we are going to dive deep in this episode about what is happening in terms of the actions that we certainly block when we start creating this grudge, when we start creating these emotions that are being, let's say, blocked in our body. And the other side of the coin is when we start understanding that our body is connected in every way, we start unblocking the receptors. We start detaching from the energy that is blocked. We start forgiving people. We start forgiving experiences. We start being more empathic with us. We start having more compassion, first with us and then with other people. And we enter into this frequency of coherence in the energy system that is creating the regeneration and the well-being in our body. So all of those things, I'm going to dive deep into each one of them. I'm going to create, let's say, wealth of knowledge that you can start applying in terms of being able to release your emotions and start acting in the way you want your body to react and to answer whatever is happening inside of you. So let's go to the first aspect in our lives, and let's start seeing what is going to happen. There is an invisible fire that is created in the grudge and the systemic inflammation. And how it works? Well, the mechanism of chronic alarm starts by holding this resentment, by creating this grudge that maintains a chronic allostatic load. Allostatic load means a blockage of energy that you start creating within your body. This event starts triggering severe glucocorticoid resistance, and then this creates your immune cells to become deaf, to not pay attention to the signals that you are having in your body, and to create these natural anti-inflammatory signals. And this is the key word. You are creating a natural mechanism. You are creating a cycle of toxicity that your body perceives as normal, but it is not normal. That is the problem, that we enter into these cycles of sabotage inside of our body. Why? Because we start releasing this cascade of molecules, which are called interleukin 6, TNF alpha, and many others that start creating the inflammation process. So these cytokine signals starts by the resentment, which is a biochemical state, and the inflammatory messengers cross the blood-brain barrier and alter the brain chemistry and start causing the sickness behavior of lethargy and anhedonia. This means that you don't feel this spark to live, you don't feel this motivation to do certain things, you feel that you are being dragged through your life, and you feel every time that you are living into this let's say survival mode and doing all of those things without knowing what is happening in your life. So next, what is going to happen? Well, you are going to start developing these systems of sabotaging yourself and start creating these actions in your life. So what is happening is that, as we can see here in the image, in this layout that is being represented, and that I love this picture because it really lets you see what happens with your receptors and what happens with the cells and how they bind the receptor, because they have to be in the exact shape of your antennas, the receptors. They bind together, they fit very well. And those receptors and those molecules are the key lock to create a gateway, to open certain channels. So emotions are information. All of these molecules, or all of these keys, all of these different shapes of the way that emotions are being represented here are neuropeptides. And this is the science that Candace Pert explained in her book, Molecules of Emotion. So neuropeptides are these molecules of emotion that coordinate your brain, your glands, and your immune system into one single unit, which is called the body-mind connection. Your white blood cells are studded with receptors. They have plenty of receptors with the exact shape for these peptides. So when your immune system is literally listening to every emotional state that you experience, then is when it locks. So you have in the other side two scenarios. So one of them is the cellular mailbox, and this cellular mailbox is the stress chemicals, the different negative emotions that you are creating by ruminating into those cycles. By creating these grudges, by creating this jam in the cellular mailboxes with stress chemicals, you overload them and you don't allow any other molecule to bind because it is already saturated. So chronic stress and negative emotions flood the system, obstructing the receptors and preventing the healthy signaling. This leads to the inflammation cascade and the cellular dysfunction. This is the scenario where you start entering into these rumination cycles. The next scenario, the letter B scenario, which is pointed here, you can see that you can also, if you practice breathing, if you practice meditation, if you practice exercise, you start releasing endorphins, you start releasing oxytocin, you start releasing serotonin, you start releasing dopamine for all the things that you want to do in your life. And those are the bliss chemicals. All of those chemicals, what they do is that they open the channels in a much simpler and healthier way, and the detachment of your emotions, of the negative emotions, and entering into this, let's say, environment of forgiveness, empathy, compassion, being at peace, having pause, having this release in terms of the exercise. You unblock the receptors. You allow the bliss chemicals to bind and to dock and trigger the cellular repair. So now you start cascading the molecules of bliss into your system. So letting go and positive states clear the receptors, enabling endorphins and healing molecules, such as the ones that I mentioned, to bind, promoting regeneration and overall well being. And we all have experienced these bliss states when we are doing something that we love, when we are with someone that we love, when we listen to certain kind of music, when we do exercise, when we journal. Every time we allow ourselves to be in a self-care mode, in a peaceful mode, we open the channels for these bliss molecules. Now, moving on into the diagrams and into the sequence of events that are happening in our body, we are going to see that the biohack system to create all of these healing process starts with the vagus nerve. Why? Because this nerve travels throughout the body and touches every system, every chakra, also that it is going to open the gates for the energy to flow. So we start creating a forgiveness protocol. How are we going to create this? And this is called the Pert technique. First, you start with this belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, which means that you start inhaling into in four, let's say, four counts, and you sustain your air with 4 seconds, and you release the air in 4 seconds. That's the easiest way to create the diaphragmatic breathing. This is the box breathing, and this is the easiest because it's the, let's say, lower count of breathing. Now, once you get into these breathing states, what you have to do is to focus your mind into the aspects of your body that are having these symptoms or the emotions that you want to release. Once you focus your mind on those, you are going to release and detach from the toxic emotions. So you open the receptors, you have space so that the molecules start binding. And then you create this vagal stimulation. And this is a direct intervention to cut the stress response. And the vagus nerve acts as the body's brake on the heart and the mechanical switch that turns off the systemic inflammation because you release the blockage. And this is how you decide against and also the emotional forgiveness protocol. This is decisional. This is the cognitive choice to release the payback. Why? Because whenever you hold a grudge, whenever you hold these negative emotions, you are intoxicating yourself. The poison is for yourself. Thinking that you are going to have revenge for what other person did to you is not damaging any other person. And by damaging the other person, you are not going to solve anything. I know it's easier said than done, but starting with this protocol, it's going to create a new habit of understanding that we all have childhood experiences, we all have trauma. Many of these people that hurt is because they already have this chronic stimulation of negative emotions and they can't break the cycles, but you can start with your own because you care about your own health. And by taking this decision, you activate the replacement of the resentment with the empathy, understanding that other people also suffer from these kind of circumstances. So this increases the parasympathetic tone, which is a relaxing response, lowers the blood pressure, and moves the body from the defense system into the growth system. And then you have energy for the repair process. Now, moving on, what is happening here? Well, we have this toxic environment that we have created with resentment. So what is happening in our heart and with the heart rate that is being created? Well, we create this low HRV, which is heart rate variability, and we have a sympathetic dominance. This means that your heart is completely erratic. It doesn't have this, let's say, coherence that we need to generate, and it is in constant thumping of hypertension caused by the unresolved emotional baggage. So once you enter into those states, it's difficult to get out of them. That's why we have to interrupt them. So how are we to interrupt them? I told you already there are 3 or 4 or more techniques that you can apply, but the ones that I mentioned is exercise, journaling, breathing, meditation, and of course, also being with someone that you love. High HRV, which activates the parasympathetic dominance, the relaxed response, is the heart rate variability that is the window into this vagal tone. And forgiveness biohacks clinically, and this is proven, to lower the blood pressure reactivity and serve as the ultimate cardiovascular protective measure, even stronger than any other medication. They have proved that there are many journal publications that I have reviewed and that you can find where forgiveness creates this high HRV and starts and triggers the parasympathetic dominance. Now, what is the next step? Well, you start rewriting your story. You start releasing the chains that kept you in those toxic state, in those sympathetic mode, in that survival response. And now you decide to live in a different way. Now you create this detachment, which is a heroic choice to move from being the victim to being the hero of your own health and journey. In spite of having those circumstances in your childhood experience that probably happened to you and you didn't know what to do because you were just a child, now you can understand that what happened to you was to give you tools to make you stronger, to create resilience. And now you can forgive your parents. Now you can forgive anyone that has harmed you because you understand that they also had those experiences, even stronger maybe than you had them. So this requires the letting go, breaking the chains, and the unenforceable rules, and reclaiming the personal power that was previously being drained by the offender. So, having these thoughts of revenge, having these thoughts of negative emotion towards someone that made you, that did something to you, that damaged you, that criticized you, that did anything to you, is not something that is going to help you. Is something that is going to trap you into the different cycles of rumination, into the different cycles of having emotional turmoil, into the different cycles of blocking your receptors in your membranes of your whole body, and start activating these cascades of interleukins, of cytokines. So you create a storm in your body, and once you repeat that habit over and over again, you can even create a chronic disease such as hypertension, diabetes, obesity. You also create certain types of cancer. You also can create autoimmune diseases and so on, because inflammation is the mother of all the diseases. Now, what I'm giving you here is a protocol to create societal resilience. And this is just as an individual immune system needs this self-tolerance, needs to understand which are your own cells that you shouldn't attack, and which are the foreign cells, and which are the cells that you need to start developing antibodies and an immune response. Our society, we as individuals, need the biology to understand that this is also biology of letting go to avoid collective autoimmunity. When we are being programmed to fight with other people because they have a different way of thinking, either political, either religious, either whatever it is the case, just because you are watching something that is trying to manipulate your mind, you start creating this grudge. You start creating this resentment towards certain parts of the society. And then you create this cascade inside of your body and you become ill. So, why? Why are you giving pleasure to this kind of media to do what they tell you to do? Why not choosing your own healing protocol? Why not choosing your health over the dialogue and the repetitive toxic news? Well, let's start now. Let's heal your own grudges directly, which is going to contribute to a more flexible, adaptive, and resilient social immune system. What this means and how this translates is that we can have a conversation with people that think different to us. And we can understand that we are unique, authentic, and we don't need to think in the same way to be, let's say, together, to be in the same boat, to be, let's say, in the same community. So understanding this is going to give you a lot of peace, and you are going to release a lot of toxic energy into the body, and you are going to start creating the, let's say, the decodification signals that you need in order to move from survival to repair and to heal. So I hope that this episode has opened your eyes into the biology of letting go and into the toxic environment that you can create yourself by entering into the program of keeping you away from others, keeping you uh, in toxicity with other beliefs. Thank you very much. If you like the episode, please subscribe to the channel so that these videos can be spread more. And give me a like, please give me a comment, because this helps the algorithm so that these kind of videos starts being watched more. Thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate you for your time here. And if you want to suggest a topic or if you want to give me a question, please share your thoughts. Thank you very much, and we will listen to each other in our next episode. Thank you. Bye.